Everybody, welcome back to Addiction, Alcoholism, and the Three Principles. Here again with Harry Durbitsky, and today we're joined by Christine Heath. We're going to do the third part in a series on the questions on the minds of those addicted. And it's been, the first two have been absolutely wonderful. I'm looking forward to this. We have some great people here today to participate in the conversation. And I can't wait to get this started. I know Harry has a couple words to say before we get going.
Yeah, this is the third part and will be made into a podcast as well. And the last show is going to have about 500 after show views of it. So there is an interest in answering questions that aren't always dealt with specifically in the 3P community, as we seem to like to sugarcoat a lot of stuff, and everything is as a positive result. And there's an energy in that, but there's also objectivity in this particular subject. I really like this with Christine. We've grown together in sort of silence to appreciate and share together through this process. And the first question, so this is questions. Everybody is free to ask questions. I have a bunch of questions just written down, but please feel free to just throw it at Christine, and she'll be more than happy to do her best to answer it. I hope anyway. Yeah. And so Christine, the first question, last week, 2 weeks ago, we had an amazing group discussion. And in the group discussion of everybody talking, I suddenly realized our show is a little like fellowship in AA. We're the fellowship of the 3P community in this sense, where people come, they talk, and then several clients or people phoned me up, contacted me, and then I had talks with them, and Greg is having the same thing. And this feeling of fellowship in addiction in the 3P community is interesting because I was talking to Dave Banks, who was going to be on our show in 2 weeks, talking about how addiction and the poor people meant so much to Sid. And he has some great stories about that. But he mentioned the fellowship that was on Salt Spring. It was just amazingly succulent and really supportive of what we were doing. But of course, 3P community is a fragmented community in the sense you're in Hawaii, I'm in Vancouver, etc. How do you see fellowship in this evolving thing that we're doing with Addiction 3P? We're having the conference in May in Minnesota. How do you see the fellowship aspect, and maybe even the free fellowship concept of it, of how it can evolve?
Well, to me, when human beings come together to make things better, in anything, whether they're recovering from addiction, or they've gone through a hurricane, or they've been like when New York got bombed at 9/11. It's like there was a feeling of connectedness that comes. And that feeling of connectedness to me is like, there's nothing better than that. And when we're by ourselves, to me, it's like when we're by ourselves, you can still live in a beautiful feeling, but the way that when we connect based on this understanding, the connection, for me anyway, it feels deeper. It feels like we're connecting at a place where we're kind of soul to soul. And so the more we do that, I think the better. It's like if there's 3 people in a really nice feeling, it just seems like the feeling gets deeper as we do that. So I think that personally, and maybe I'm the only one that does this, but it's really easy to get caught up in your thinking, even thinking about the 3 principles. So it's like you can talk about them, when you're teaching this all day long and you're sharing it and you're doing that, you can make that just as intellectual as anything else. So that ability to come together and really talk about the feeling and the way that we connect at that in that deeper space. It's almost like a meeting room that you go to. You know, like they used to have this kind of secret meeting rooms for the Moose Club or the Elks, or, you know, where people would go and they have this connection, and it's kind of like this secret meeting room on the inside. And so when we connect at that place and we experience that feeling, and when, for me anyway, when I go back out into the world, what I've got is fresh and new and exciting again. Like there's a way that, I mean, I learned this about the principles in 1980, before they were the principles. And I have to tell you that I talk about this stuff almost every day. And after this many years, I'm still just as jazzed about it. If somebody's interested, man, I'm ready to talk to them because of that connection that we get. So I think that to me, the fellowship in AA is where people come together to live a better life, to live in a more beautiful feeling, to get their act together in a sense. And they come together at that space without judgment. So when we come together as the three principles, we come together from all different walks of life and from all different parts of the world and from all different experiences, but yet we have that thing in common, and we all know what that is. And that knowing, that connection, it just like lights it up again for me anyway. It's just like, I'm just like it's so real and so alive.
So that's the Salt Spring feeling that we had, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But the trouble I have in transition, and Greg would probably answer, this will happen organically, because when we've talked about certain things in form and stuff, he always has helped me to say, no, it will just evolve organically to become something when it's ready, type of thing. But I, you know, first of all, it's free. Fellowship is free in a certain aspect of it, and we're you know, 3P is, to me, seems to be more a commercial enterprise a lot, and that feeling is impersonal, not personal. Like it seems to me that the people in the addicted world want what you're talking about, but the access to it is not, in my mind, not so readily available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there are some places that have three principles support groups for people, especially in St. Paul and Minneapolis. And that's been, you know, a great thing that started when I was up there in the 2000s. And, you know, I think that people can certainly do that. I mean, that's the beauty of the principles, right? It's like you don't have to have been trained, and you don't have to know anything but, you know, what you know, and that's enough, because the feeling that you have is what connects people. So I think that people just have to see that that's something they want to do. And, you know, Greg's right. It's like it'll come from them and come from that space. You know, like we started working in addictions in Minneapolis in 1980. And it took until like 20 years later before those groups started to kind of evolve. So, you know, I think with the internet and what you're doing here is great. But a lot of people don't slow down enough to make that connection. You know, it's like they're kind of in real time. So connecting when you're watching it online, I think, is a little bit different than when you're in real time with it. So, you know, that's just that's just where I'm at. But I guess everybody creates their sense of fellowship somewhere in their life, and that's really what the point of fellowship is, to feel like you're connected at a more spiritual level. At least in my mind, that is. So, for people that get addicted, or that are kind of using a lot, they're suffering, and one of the reasons they're suffering is because they don't feel that connection, right? So, I mean, I think that's really why AA helps people at all, is because of the fellowship. That's the most powerful thing that's offered.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And it's been amazing. The last couple of years, I've really kind of focused on surrounding myself with like-minded people. Yeah, because there was something in AA that I always kind of liked. They have this idea it was in the big book, talk about before all the meetings were around, before the fellowship was really established. And they're talking about, what are you doing if you're sitting, reading this book in a town where you don't have another group to talk to? And basically what it came down to is, what do you do when you can't find the fellowship that you crave? You create it. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, there's a lot of people out there who are living this understanding and have no clue what it's called. They just live it. And I've got a huge group of friends now that are just like that. And I can go hang out with them, and we're all kind of on that same wavelength. And because of that, we get to have real conversations. We don't talk about the weather and sports and politics and stuff. We talk about what's really going on in our lives, and our new experiences we've been having, and even our struggles. It's important to have people to connect with when we're in a funk, when we're when we're caught up in our thinking, kind of have those people who help guide us back to our own wisdom. So,
yeah, it's definitely a need for human beings to be around other human beings. Otherwise, their thinking looks very real to them.
Right.
No, that's why we're social beings, I think, is because we make so many mistakes when we think that we don't know it, right? Like you don't know it until one of your friends says, "What the hell are you doing?"
Right.
Well, that's one of the side benefits of fellowship is the social aspect takes you out of your own head, type of thing. The problem, of course, is, when I deal with the indigenous and non-indigenous world, the non-indigenous world is obsessed with what's going on in their own head, and the non-indigenous people are more obsessed with oneness, type of thing, and they don't automatically relate it back to what's happening in their own head, but it's about getting out of your head. And so I see fellowship by that social aspect does, like when Greg's grooving with his pals, and that the feeling takes over. And when that feeling is generated, it's self-motivating and uplifting and freeing. And of course, it gives us a break from what we're thinking, which I think is kind of, as you alluded to, Christine, kind of nice.
Yeah.
My
my husband has been involved in the efforts of the Hawaiians to protect the Mauna Kea from development. And he, after the first month, he's been going, it's an hour and a half drive for him to go up, and he goes up every day. And he sits with the kupuna, and they have their message is kapu aloha, which means say no with love. And so everything is designed to be nonviolent and to come from that feeling of aloha. So after he was up there for a month, he and I've been really supportive of him going up there. I noticed three things about him. One is he became so interested in learning about his own culture and about the spiritual aspects of what was going on. But even just the language, things that he was told never to learn and couldn't do that. And he has his feeling level changed so dramatically. And he said to me, he said, for me, going up to the mountain is like you spending a month with Sydney Banks. I said, yeah, I see that. I see that, honey. I see that feeling is what you're getting. And I've gone up there with him many times, and it's like electric. The feeling is so powerful. And that doesn't mean that, they don't have their own little pilikea where my husband always says, if you get 10 Hawaiians in a room, you have 10 different ideas about what to do. But there's that deeper connection at that feeling of aloha, and you can just see him transformed. He'd retired, and he's getting old, and he can't do that much anymore. And he was starting to get kind of negative in his thinking, which was unusual for him. And when he started doing this, it's just like he woke up. And he's funny because he said, honey, he said, I wish that you could go up there and help them, because They don't know it, but they're talking the same thing that you're talking. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. So but it's the same thing, that the people coming together from that feeling, there's a way that they call it chicken skin over here, but in Minnesota we used to call it goosebumps, but you just get like, this feeling that there's something deeper that's happening. Yeah. And I think that was the thing on Salt Spring Island too. It's like you could feel there was something deeper happening. And here you guys were in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I mean, Salt Spring Island is very remote. To this day, it's very remote. But in those days, it was even more remote. And when I first went up there, that was the thing that really hit me, like, wow, this is starting to go around the world. And it started out in this place that's so remote, but yet the feeling attracted people. And that's kind of what Greg was talking about, is how things kind of unfold and they happen from that feeling. So I think when people come together, I mean, that's why Sid wanted to get this out into the world, because as people wake up, they affect other people. They start to connect at that healthier level with people, and we do things to evolve as a human species, hopefully before we destroy the planet.
Yeah, the feeling you're talking about, that was so self-evident that that was never ever questioned. Of course, it was fueled by the fact that we were with an enlightened human being whose energy was always like unexplainably through the roof type of stuff. But I can remember getting up, walking down the street on Ganges, dropping into Jim Wallace's, he was a lawyer, supposedly busy, and he was. I'd drop in and I'd leave 3 hours later. And I'd go, wow, that was an unbelievable experience. And that was continually happening in our sharing of the feeling, the wonderment. Fellowship includes wonderment of what we're experiencing. To this day, I'm sure, Christine, you and I just shake our heads with wonderment.
Oh yeah. It's for me anyway, it's just remembering that it's not about me to get this out, to connect with people. It's what comes through me that allows me to want to connect on that level, because then I don't have to worry about whether I'm doing the right job or whether I'm doing it well. It's just human to human, that it's in everybody, and that if we just get out of the way, we will connect at that level without any effort.
Yeah, the same thing happened when I met Thomas. That whole thing just exploded in its own quiet, intimate little way, and it was very, very beautiful. Are there any questions for Christine, or don't all jump in at once? Yeah.
Hello, Christine.
Hello.
For me, I think what comes to mind is like connecting with these communities, like when people don't buy into your stories about things and you somehow find some kind of hope inside of you, and the hopelessness, I don't know how to like talk to it, but can you talk a bit more about that hope? You feel connected somehow, because it's like you can be connected just listening in, and then it gives you so much, because it's like when the talk is over, you reflect it back to yourself and you hear something else, and there's possibilities instead of like the same old darkness.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I so when I saw you were coming on, I so remember this beautiful sharing about your dog. You just kept on looking after your dog, and you just knew, but you didn't, and somehow, and that gives me goosebumps still today. So it's something about that. You just know somehow, but it's not up in your head. It's and it's like gives other people hope. I suppose.
Yeah. Yes, that certainty of it, right? That's what you're saying, the certainty that everybody can live in a different space, that they can be free of suffering. That certainty is in everybody. Like everybody knows that, right? That's why people search. I mean, that's why people have addictions in the first place, because they're trying to feel better. Like that's one of the things they know. And so they're looking in the world for things that they think will make them feel better, that appear to, change how they feel. And yet that doesn't do it. So they get hopeless because they're just looking in the wrong place, right? So as soon as a person is pointed in the direction of what they know, they wake up to it. And when they wake up to it, they get a shift. And that shift then is what gives them hope. Like, oh, no wonder I'm a mess. I'm doing everything backwards. You get that. So that was for me. That's what I saw. I was like, oh gosh, no wonder I'm having all this trouble in life. I'm trying to do it backwards. And so that shift, when you see that you're not what you think, that you're something deeper than that, and that everybody is that. Like we're all looking at each other, but we're all the same, right? It's like we're the same thing, looking at each other through different thoughts. Some of us are.
And it's so paradoxical, because if you're a surfer, you don't go looking for keeping your breath under the water. You keep looking after the bigger and bigger and bigger wave until you have to keep your breath, and then you find out that's what's saving you, if you're able to hold your breath. So
yes,
get it quiet.
Yes. Yeah, that, and see, as soon as you wake up to what you know, that's where the hope comes from. Because like, oh, wait a minute, I'm okay. And so that, to me, that adds to my certainty when I talk to people, because I know they know. Like they might not be listening, and they might not want to know at that time, and they might not, I always kind of think that people are like popcorn, you heat them all up at the same time, and some of them pop right away, and some of them sizzle for a while. Sometimes you got to put those back in for a second heating. But everybody's different when they wake up to it, but they all are this. Everybody is the principles. Everyone is the hope.
Yeah, it's like the hope, because I was in the belief that you had to make one giant leap and then you was like saved somehow. And then, won the race, sort of. And then I realized you have to make that giant leap every day, sort of, because you lose contact with what is sort of every day. And then you realize, but just do it and keep on jumping, and it's the fun of it.
Yeah.
And,
it
took a while.
Yeah, the other thing, what you just said is really important, is that the difference is just what you're focusing on. Like if you focus on, oh, there, I've lost it again, I'm doing so terrible, look at me, I can't do anything right, then you miss that you just got back, you just saw, like just seeing that is improvement, right? Like you just see, like, oh, I'm thinking again, I'm caught up in myself again. The fact that you can see that and that you recognize it is a huge thing. That's really important. But if you focus on that and judge it, then you get caught up in it again, right? So it's like I have a woman that a young girl that I'm working with right now who's got an eating disorder, and she's had tons of therapy, traditional therapy. And she is like, I think it'll take me 6 months just to undo the therapy that's happened with her, because she's so programmed to be hopeless. It's kind of like she came in on when I saw her on Thursday, and she said, oh, I'm still binging and purging a couple of days a week, once a day. And I said, okay. And I said, and how much were you doing before? And she said, well, every day, 3 to 5 times a day. I was like, well, that's great then. That's wonderful. She goes, what? I said, yeah, it's no big deal. You just got stressed out a little bit. That's okay. Forget about it. just keep moving in the direction you're going. And you could see she kind of teared up in her eyes because she's so used to like, oh, woe is me, what a failed human being I am. I've fallen from grace. I've gotten caught up doing this again. And I said, really, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You're okay. And you just got to keep going in the direction you're going and don't get distracted.
And is that about, I believe she's really seen. Because that's what I've experienced. People in this community seems to see me and are okay with, I can say sort of anything and I'm okay anyway. I'm not like excluded from the gang.
Right.
So I feel safe. I can like open my mouth and just be a jerk. And
right.
come back down on my feet, it seems like.
But, I mean,
it's really comfortable. Sorry?
Ultimately, isn't that what we all really want? Is to just be able to be ourselves without being judged for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even if in that moment I'm not, in my greatest place, to have people understand that it's temporary, that there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
It's just part of the experience that I'm going through that day, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I may not want to stay there very long, but definitely it's not a big deal because it'll pass and your health will come back again. And that is what gives people promise that they won't necessarily go back to we can always go back to the way we were. That's the deal. It's always there, right? It's just that once you see something at a little deeper level, it's kind of like it's an irritant. It's kind of like it bugs people that they're back where they were, they're doing what they're doing. And whenever they wake up again to it, they'll shift. At least that's what it's been for me. I remember when I first met Sid Banks, he called me up and he said, would you like me to help you? And I was like, yeah. And then he said, okay, just be you. I thought, well, who the hell is that? I have no clue. I've been searching for that for years. But, that's the deal. It's like I'm still discovering what that is. And that is the most important thing, is just to be yourself and to not care, really, if you get caught up or you say something stupid. The thing about the Three Principles community is sometimes when you're with a bunch of people that are in a really beautiful feeling and you kind of, what I call psychologically vomit a little bit, and you kind of, what comes out of your mouth is a little odd. It's like resonates through the room. It's like, no, and you're like, oh, whoops. And then you hear that, and then you make the adjustment, but other people probably don't even notice it. That's the deal. Yeah.
And one of the other things, Christine, with Thomas's question that I adhere to, because I'm not so, I love that I break free of my low moods or whatever and stuff, but that doesn't impress me too much. That's going to happen. I've kind of accepted that. But what I've seen is spiritually, everything is put in place over time, and we're evolving and developing into a much more comprehensive whole person. So many of the things that I interpreted as negative or bad moods or tough times, over the years, I was developing skills that were inadequate, were not fully developed. And so in a God design world, we're developing at the right pace. In a personal design world, hey, I'm in trouble, I'm not doing this, I'm bankrupt, I'm divorced, I'm addicted, I'm et cetera, et cetera. In reality, what I found is what we love about being yourself is that's quite a bit. Like it sounds so simple. Be yourself, Christine. But Christine's not that simple. Like there's a lot there. And and so on. And so I've been in a way, I felt like for 35 years I was dormant. And that's my story. But the reality was I wasn't dormant. I was developing and evolving to when I became ready again to start again.
Mhm.
And that really has given me a lot of hope, because now I know everybody is just evolving at their perfect pace. And that has, Thomas, that has given me a lot of hope, because I know everybody, it's all perfectly happening. And you could even look at the three principles as a point of evolvement type of
Oh,
thing.
absolutely, absolutely. You can see the city evolved. You can
That's
hear
right.
the way he talked. He would talk for an hour or 2 hours, and at the end, he'd talk for 15 minutes. And
That's right.
it was like he just got clearer and he got more powerful as he evolved. So
I don't know if that's true, but I don't interpret. I just see that he saw that we couldn't absorb very much of what he was
that, for whatever reason, he
Yeah.
talked in a way that was more succinct. You know.
That was true. That was true.
You know what I absolutely love, though, is the moments when I catch myself creating those stories, when I'm coming up with some reason why I can't do something or shouldn't do something, and then it hits me. It's like, oh, I'm doing it again. It's like, there it is. I just laugh it off and it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to ruin my entire day or week or months anymore. It could just be that moment when I got caught up in my thinking, and then I realized it, and poof, it's gone.
You know,
I've
that's really important, Greg. You know, it's like not taking yourself personal. Yeah. It's like just seeing that, it's like not a big deal either way. Like the more you can laugh at yourself and you see it, it's kind of cute. Like, oh, geez, I can't believe I got caught up thinking about that again. It's like you kind of get over yourself in that.
It's like, of all the stories I can make up, why do I want to make this one?
Yeah.
Why don't I make a better one? I'm making one up anyway, so. And I laugh at some of the best, like, heartfelt, guttural laughs that I have is when I catch myself making these stories.
Uh-huh.
And how boring they are. You know, that's the thing that gets, how boring I am up here. You know, this is really, oh boy.
It's like all this guy does is whine and complain.
Yeah. Or the thing I do is I make up stuff about why other people are doing what they're doing. And I usually couldn't be farther from the truth. It's like it's like you miss information, and then that changes the story like 180 degrees. Always cracks me up. I think I know something, and it couldn't be farther from the truth.
And that was kind of one of the funny things for me with this understanding, was that I saw the innocence in other people long before I saw it in me. Mm-hmm. Mostly because of all those stories I had about myself that I still believed. Mm-hmm. But I could see it in other people, so I had that hope that it was there in me too. Mm-hmm. And the day that I saw it, I mean, the first time I laughed at myself like that was just the greatest day of my life. Because I knew right then and there, it's like, I'm no longer a slave to this. Mm-hmm. I've seen the man behind the curtain, so now the fiery face is no longer so scary. Mm-hmm. You know, I love The Wizard of Oz. I think there's a lot of great analogies in there. And in the end, you know, what the wizard ended up telling everybody was that they already had everything they always wanted anyway.
That's right.
And that's what we're doing. We're pulling back the curtain and saying, look, this is how it works. There isn't really this big head with fire around it. It's you. It's your own thinking.
So I'm going to ask another question, since this is one Christine gave, that she said she threw it in just the other day. Why do you think I have a problem when my spouse partner is the one who is crazy?
Yeah.
That was Christine's recent addition to the question. So I figured I think It's actually, now that I see it, it's a pretty funny question. But excuse me.
You'd be surprised at how many times I have somebody's, really like full on in an addiction, and they'll come in and say, look, I don't have a problem, but my wife just goes crazy, and she gets so out of control, and she's yelling and screaming, and fix her, and then I wouldn't have to drink. It's kind of that, it appears as if it's an outside thing. But yeah, I often think that's funny, because when you live with, to me, like working with families and kind of helping families to evolve is the most important thing, because when one person changes, it affects everybody else, but sometimes it doesn't affect them. Like they get insecure about that and they kind of move away. But when people are using, the person that loves them is trying to protect them, right? So they get so focused on that person, and they're thinking about that person all the time, that they lose their bearings and tend to sometimes even act out crazier than the person who's using. So it's easy then for that person to say, yeah, well, look at you, you're talking about me. So we get so outside in. And so I always say that that person who's using a substance or has an eating disorder, whatever their addiction is got that thing going, but the person that's in a relationship with them gets addicted to them. It's like that, they're on their mind all the time. They're thinking about whether they're using or not. They're suspicious. They come home, they're looking around for if there's evidence of drug use. They're always kind of in that state of insecurity. And when you do that, obviously you get into a pretty bad state of mind. So then people tend to act out. And so you get like when couples come in to see me and there's a lot of violence in the relationship, like a lot of what I would call crazy behavior. When that happens and it comes in to my life with a client, they were talking about their life and it's so crazy, and I'll go like, okay, who's using? Because it's almost a guarantee that there's somebody that's contaminating their mental health so much, and the other person is then contaminating their mental health by trying to control the other person. So they get caught in this vicious cycle of who's crazier than who. And it's just really a level of consciousness, right, that the people get in. It's just like a way of interacting that comes from that level of understanding.
It's a contest nobody really wants to win.
No.
Who's the crazier one here?
Right. But when you're outside in, it really looks like it's the other person that's making you feel anxious, making you insecure, that's, on your case, like, what's the problem here? And stop, like, if you weren't so suspicious of me, I wouldn't be sneaking around. And so it's kind of like people dance this dance together where they're just either like they're doing the tango or they're doing the waltz. And so I always think that understanding the principles helps people to waltz instead of tango so much, because there's less frenetic energy that happens. But as soon as they get into a better state of mind, you can see that craziness just drops away.
And the other person does have a tremendous influence on how the climate is felt in the moment. I remember my mother, because she got married, had her third baby. They overdosed her on diet pills. She just took, and she kind of flipped out. And then for 25 years she was on these opiates, and then at 65 she said, "Oh, I'm dropping these." And everybody exploded with negativity with regards to the situation, except myself. And she was right. But to stand up against that onslaught was just tremendous. But she was so sure she knew what she was doing, and she's that type of person. And she lived to 95, and if she would have listened to the other people, I'm sure she would have died at 75. So, and not only that, every year those drugs disappeared out of her system, and she became so content.
Oh, hold on one second here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So she became content and powerful and independent, and because she had followed what she knew was true. And I must admit, it's a story that has just inspired me. Perhaps, Greg, the one story that has been the most inspirational, like to allow me to come into the world of addiction, is that story. To see my mother decide just like that was it, and move on. I didn't realize it until I told that story, Christine, that perhaps that was the reason that I was taken into the world of addiction, because I saw my own mother leave that opiate crisis. No 3P, no this, just knowing. And I mean knowing.
Well, that is 3P.
Of course.
That's what I've been noticing about, my newest group of friends here, is that they're all living this, but they don't talk about it like that.
Mm-hmm.
So people don't need to actually know the 3 principles. People don't need 12 steps. They don't need any of this stuff. There's a lot of people who just wake up one day and be like, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
I want something better for myself. I want a different experience out of life.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're really talking about here. That's what the 3 principles have done for me, is pointed to that spot. I may have gotten there eventually on my own, but this gave me that like rocket boost, just fired me right off into the stars. Like, this is what's really going on.
Mm-hmm. It's that shift, isn't it? When you see that you don't want to do that anymore. And when that comes in for people, you can see the light bulb go on for them. And all of a sudden it's like, I'm not doing this anymore. And that's what keeps people moving in the right direction. If they try to talk themselves into it being a good idea, they're much more vulnerable to go back to using. But when the person wakes up, and I always, I think that one of the things that happens with people that use substances is it appears as if treatment will fix them. That learning the 3 principles will fix them. That something has to be done to them, right? That they're still in that outside, but that shift happens and you wake up and you're like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And when that happens, it's over with. Like when I went home from my class reunion, and my boyfriend, when I was in high school, has been in AA for 40 years. He's been sober 40 years. But I was talking to him, and the poor guy has been in therapy every day for the last 40 years, basically. And he's still not sleeping at night. He's having trouble. And so I talked to him, and what had happened with him is that he was driving home one day and he hit something, and he didn't think it was an animal. And he came home and thought he'd hit somebody with his car, and took himself down to detox, put himself in detox, and sobered up and never drank again. And so I knew that he had that shift, right? And so when he's talking to me about his mental health problems and his thinking problems, I said, do you remember what happened to you when you quit drinking? He goes, yeah. I said, do that. He goes, oh, I know what that is. Oh, okay. And it, like he could just see that that's what happened to him. That's when people reach that point. Sometimes they can be in the middle of a group or in a treatment program, or sitting on the beach, or sitting in their bedroom. It's like for me, when that happened to me, I read this article about this. When I was in college, I did amphetamines, and I was reading this article about what they used to call white crosses, and it said that people that got headaches was because they were cut with strychnine, and you were getting strychnine poisoning. And I read that article. I was like, oh, I get those headaches. And that was it. Never touched it again, because I woke up to that. I saw it as something different. And that's kind of, it's like when people get to that, I mean, I wasn't even looking for it. I wasn't even interested in addictions at the time. But yeah, it's that moment when people get a shift and they see that their life isn't about whatever it is they think they need, that they don't really need it. They don't even really want it. And when you wake up to that, you're free.
That is truth to it. You can be told something, you know, a million times, but until you actually look at it for yourself and see it, it doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can say something a million times teaching someone and then realize what the truth of it is. I've had that over and over again. Oh, is that what I was? And then all of a sudden, what I was teaching kind of goes like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was teaching it kind of wrong. And yeah, because I didn't see what I had seen when I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's evolvement too. We're growing in our sharing. We're babies.
Oh, absolutely. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's the most inspiring thing, is how little I know. You know, I love that. I love. Whew. Well, I used to think I knew a lot.
Yeah.
The more I see, the less I know.
Yeah. But you know, that's where the good stuff is, though. It's kind of like what you know is like dead information. Like, who cares? But when you see something different and you like wake up to something, it's a whole different feeling. That's why after all these years we're still talking about this, right? Because otherwise it'd be like, ho hum, you know, another talk on the principle, big deal. But it's not about that, right? It's about that deeper feeling.
And you feel empty. Like, you know, before I always felt full with the information I knew. And now if that happens, I feel empty, or it's a second chance, a fresh beginning. And I love being empty. Like I can actually receive, you know, where the other is just, you know, this.
Can I ask you something, Christine?
Sure.
It's when you were saying, I don't know where it came from. Maybe it was Harry, maybe it was you, maybe Greg, or from myself. I don't know. But I keep hearing the bigger picture, the bigger picture, the bigger picture. It seems like looking at the bigger picture, and it seems like we are the bigger picture. We are like it. And it seems to me like we don't jump into the details right away. Step back and look at the bigger picture, and it's very tempting to get involved right away. I'm talking from my own experience. And when I don't do that, when I stay and listen, then sort of the bigger game seems to make sense somehow. And then the question comes out, and the guy I'm sitting with, the human like next to me, hears something from that, because it's like obvious somehow for everyone. And I don't know, I can't. Can you talk to that somehow?
Well, to me, I think that's kind of the power of mind in all of us. That it's not about what we're talking about. It's about that we're talking. You know, that we're looking in the right direction in a sense. And then people drop into that feeling in themselves. And so they hear what they need to hear, which may have nothing to do with what you said. I mean, I've had people say, well, you said blah, blah, blah. And I never said it, you know, I never said it, but that's what they heard. And that's what helped them, you know. So to me, that's the relief, is that you don't have to know what other people need to hear, because that would make us all pretty crazy. But it's like, if you know that they're the same as you, you know that they know about all of this inside of them, then just by being in that feeling, they get into a better feeling, a better state of mind, and that opens them up to see something. But yeah, you never know what people are hearing and what they need to hear, because it's coming from them.
Beautiful. Thank you. I don't know what I heard, but it was something beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something about faith, but it's not that. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what faith is.
Mm-hmm.
Is knowing that you know.
Mm. Sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
One time I was with Sid in a group, and he was at the beginning he talked a lot about hope, and I said, hope is the beginning of faith, isn't it? And he turned with a big smile and says, that's right.
That's right.
So the hope, faith.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's like waking up and then seeing that you're already there. Then you don't have to have faith that you're going to get there, right? It's like you see that you're there.
And hope is like, that's sort of what we're peddling.
Yes. You know, it's really interesting. Yesterday, I met with this kid who has pretty significant mental health problems. His parents are just at the end of their ropes with them. And so I flew over to Oahu to meet with him. And I met with him individually, and he was like so all over the place. And I was just trying to quiet him down a little bit, just trying to talk to him and give him some hope that maybe there's something I could help him with that would help him to feel better. And he was like not having it. He was like, I don't know. And then I don't know what I said, but I said something, and he goes, do you mean that all mental illness is just thought? And I said, well, yeah. I said, well, what about this and that? I said, well, people still create the symptoms from the state of mind they're in. And you can have like different things going on with your brain, but it's still just thought. Yeah. And it was like he got so quiet, but then he got freaked out about that because he went out and was talking to my intern when I was talking to his family, and he said, is there something in the air here? What did she do to me? She did something to me, you know? And it was like, I was like not even talking about the principles. I was just trying to get him to see that maybe there would be a way for him to feel better. But he got actually a deeper insight than I was even thinking possible in that moment, really. So to me, it's like, I don't know what's going on with him today, but at that time I was like, whoa, this kid just dropped into something pretty deep here. And he did quiet down, but then he started thinking about the fact that he quieted down and it was so different for him. He started to get a little insecure about that.
It's so interesting because people do misinterpret these beautiful feelings with the intellect. In the indigenous world, they almost always have an inside experience, which many interpret as bad spirit. And then they talk to me and I say, oh, no, that's not bad spirit. That's the good stuff. And they go, oh, good. And then they're off. You know, they just had this branding or story. Oh, that's bad spirit. I must be bad spirit. I feel good. You know.
Yeah.
So I imagine that in the non-indigenous world, we're doing the same thing. We're misinterpreting rather than just allowing it to express itself.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And even it might even be said, Christine, that you are still just experiencing your original experience of going inside. And the only thing stopping you from experiencing it at a faster pace is you and your interpretation of that. And I know that is 100% true for me. I know.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're, you know, I'm not sure I'm experiencing anything but that experience, but it has taken me 45 years just to accept this part of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's really an unfolding of that simple truth. Really, it's kind of like it's so simple yet so powerful.
Is there another question before we, I can ask one more, or does someone have a question? How about you, Monique? I don't know you, but do you have a question for Christine?
Hey there. You know, I just am really thankful to hear Christine's stories about psychotherapy because I don't know, some of you might know me, but I'm in graduate school studying psychotherapy, and and I, yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, and it's interesting doing that. I came across a 3Ps about a year into my 3-year program that's now turned into a 4-year program. So I'm just starting my 3rd year next month. And but I realized that my last therapist that I had, she works from a spiritual perspective, and there was a lot of similarity to what she was doing. And so it kind of poised me to be kind of receptive to the 3 principles when I came across them. But a lot of the work that I did in therapy didn't really do it for me. Some of it helped, you know, but then when I came across the 3 principles, that just changed my life, and I definitely decided that was the perspective, the approach that I was going to use or come from in my practice. And I'm finding it rather challenging, not in what I'm learning. I'm learning a lot of things that are just, you know, it's the old traditional stuff. I'm in a holistic program, so they're open to stuff. A lot of them are transpersonal. And some of them are, you know, kind of Buddhist psychologists and things like that. So there's some stuff in there where they're open. A lot of them put me in like a cognitive psychology camp, you know, because I talk about thought. Some of them think I'm transpersonal, all that. So it's interesting, and I have concerns about, you know, they teach a lot of strategies, a lot of, you know, what they call interventions that are just strategies. And so it's challenging for me because I keep wanting to point people in a different direction, and they're like, no, you need to, you know, do these therapeutic techniques that are going to fix them, you know, and it's looking like I'm not being compliant in that regard because I'm not. And but, you know, I don't have any legs to stand on myself. I have not been a practicing therapist. I have not even been a coach. And so I don't have any like successes to, you know, say, hey, this works, you know. I've been a little bit on the down low about, you know, I don't say anything about the 3 principles. I just start talking about how I see it. And I get a lot of receptive people. Like a lot of my professors are like, oh, that's a really great way of looking at it, you know. So, but I love hearing, you know, Christine talk about like, you know, working with like severely, you know, mentally ill people or families or couples or, you know, people. I wanted to hear this talk because I'm going to be working with a lot of addictions, a lot of people, a lot of eating disorders, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I love hearing how this has helped people. It definitely helped me in that regard. So yeah.
You know, I have about three of the people that work with me that are all in graduate school. Maybe you guys could have your own support group getting through traditional psychology, knowing the
I would love that. I don't know anyone at all who is in graduate school who it comes from this perspective at all.
Okay, I thought Missy was going to be on, but she's not on today. But if do you have my email?
I don't, but I can probably get it.
It's just my name, Christine J. Heath @gmail.
Okay, Christine J. Heath.
Just send me an email. I'll connect you with them, and you know, I'm sure
What a great idea! I love that idea, Christine. Beautiful.
Yeah, I just spoke for a minute or two with Mark Howard. I don't know if you know him, but he's actually like an hour from me, and he actually does supervise some people sometimes. So I was like, oh, good, because I just, you know, I know that in my practicum, especially, I'm going to have to end up doing things that probably I don't agree with. That's part of my training, and that's part of getting through the licensing you know.
Well, yeah, I can help you with that. Actually, these guys get through pretty well. I've got this worked out, how to talk to people that are in that world and not have to lose it.
Yeah, so connect with Christine. That's perfect. And
That'd be great.
what a wonderful.
Mark Howard is an excellent therapist. He's
Yeah,
really
no, but you yourself will also be a good
Yeah.
asset in that area.
Yeah.
You know, and it's
Wonderful.
directly the same field, so beautiful.
Thank you so much, Christine. I appreciate that.
Sure, no problem.
Cool.
That's my thing right now, is I'm trying to train other therapists in this. That's kind of what I see my calling is right now. So.
And you're in Hawaii, right?
I'm in Hawaii, yeah.
Yeah, darn.
Well, Zoom makes it easy.
I guess
Yeah,
we'll all
yeah.
have to take a trip to Hawaii.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And-
But as
yeah,
far
and
as like getting licensing training, like the supervision for all that, like that has to be from a California licensed therapist for me. So, but that doesn't mean I can't get resources
And Sid's message was always first heal yourself,
mm-hmm.
and then you have something to offer. And what you're doing will really make you strong within yourself.
Yeah, and it's ongoing, but I actually feel now in a position to help people, whereas just even a couple years ago, before I came across this understanding, I wanted to help people, but I was not in a position to do that at all. I was better than I was a decade ago, but I was worried about it. And now I feel, of course, it's always, who knows, but now I feel much more poised to do that, to be of service to people. So, yeah.
Good.
Terrific.
Anybody got another question? Mary, do you have a question for Ms. No? Okay. Should I ask one more, or should we call it a meeting? It's up to you guys. Are you tired? I'll ask one more. Quick one. This is Christine's, also for Christine. It's another cute one. Why are people always on my case to stop using when I don't think it's a big problem? Quick one, and then we'll call her a day.
Well, it's just that, when I think anyway, when people have addictions, they have a lot of positive thinking. They think, I don't have a problem. It's fine. I can stop anytime I want to. I mean, they just have a lot of positive thinking about themselves. And so when other people are reacting, they really can't see what they're doing. They don't see that they're malfunctioning. And so in their mind, they're fine. And to me, that's just the power of thought, really. It's like that you can think that you're fine, even though your life is falling apart around you. And the way that we think just kind of makes that not be my fault. It's like, yeah, that's happening, but what does that got to do with me? Like, so what? My wife is, going crazy and on antidepressants and trying to get a divorce. It's just, and you can see the innocence in people. To me, it's like you just see the innocence in people. They have no clue that living in that place that everybody else, it's kind of like the emperor's new clothes, like everybody else can see that you don't have any clothes on, but it's until you wake up to it, till it's kind of, you see it, that you change it. Otherwise, it looks like everybody else has just got a problem with you for no particular reason.
Yeah.
And, it's like the thinking that we have always is like, it's like, kind of reminds me of, I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember All in the Family, but Archie Bunker was this really opinionated guy that thought that everything he thought
Slightly opinionated guy. Yeah.
And the reason that was on for 14 years is because we're all like that. We all have these thoughts that we don't see as thoughts that look like the truth. And so you can't see what you can't see. And people get frustrated because it's like, how can you not see this? How can you kill yourself like this? It's like the thinking of the other person is like, there must be some motive in doing this, or you're stupid, or you don't love me, or there's some reason that you're doing this. and you would know that it was bad, but people really don't see it. I mean, they just don't see it, or they have
sugarcoat it. They sugarcoat
yeah,
it.
right.
It's
Or
kind
they
of
have
it's kind of the difference between positive thinking, which means I'm going to sugarcoat it no matter what it is, and then seeing the truth. The sugarcoating turns out to be the defective, diluted thought,
right.
thinking, and we are taught to be positive, to have positive thinking, but not all of some of that is just a tape recording going in your head.
Yeah, I think that actually when I think of positive thinking is our best shot at trying to get a good feeling. And so we can see that when we think positive about things, we have a better feeling about it. So that positive thinking looks like that's the truth, because you can't see what you're doing and how that's impacting other people, because you get so caught up in your own little world. Yeah. So frequently people will say that, like, I don't know what the big deal is here. Well, she wants to leave me because I'm drinking, and I don't think this is a problem. Everybody drinks. Everybody has a glass of wine, a beer every once in a while. What's the big deal? And there's just a way that we take the information, and what doesn't match with the way that we think we need to be gets put in the trash bin, and what matches is like Velcro. It just sticks. Like, oh, see right there. Look at that. And that's how we keep our world going, is that we don't know that everything we think isn't true. We don't know that everything we think isn't accurate. And so when we keep thinking it over and over and over again, each time we do that, it gets more real and more real and more real. And you get more blinded by that, till you have those moments when you wake up. And then you're like, oh, that's really stupid. Why was I doing that? And then it's a little sheepish, right? It's like, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And I didn't see that.
Well, we're going to make this into a podcast because Christina's asked for it. And also Christina's promised me she's going to take one of the questions that has been asked her. I'm just reminding her of that, and we're going to make that into a podcast as well. Just one question from this particular talk, and so on, and so on. So we hope people will listen to that, and so on. Can you wrap up, Greg?
Yeah, thank you so much for coming back on, Christine. It's always a pleasure. We always end up having such a great deep conversation, and I love the participation from people that are showing up too. To me, that really just kind of sets it off. So
really,
please, if you are really just feeling pretty bad about life and yourself, reach out. I know me and Harry are here, available for free anytime. Get a hold of us. We'll set up a time, and just reach out. It's not as bad as it seems.
Several contacted me from the last show, and it really touched me, to be honest, and Greg too. We're here to help, and in one level we don't know, so we're here to help with not knowing.
Yeah.
Right. Let's not know together. How about that? Well, thanks again, everybody. This has been absolutely amazing. And
thank you.
I look forward to seeing people in Minneapolis in May. I think that's going to be a really fun time. Christine,
Greg and I have been working together for 2.5 years. We've never met. I think it will be a sight to be seen. Oh, is that what you look like? So.
It'll be fun. It'll be a good time.
Yeah.
Everybody enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you at the next one.